once again. I'm again with Dr. Françoise Wilhelmi de Toledo today, and we are answering one of your next questions. Françoise Wilhelmi de Toledo is the scientific director of the Buchinger Wilhelmi clinics at Bodensee, Germany, and in Marbella, Spain. Hello, Françoise, and thank you once again for taking the time.
Hello, Lisa. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Great, thanks. Then let's jump immediately into the question of today. I think everybody heard about longevity a lot in the past, and that question is particular about this new word. And to be a bit more precise, a person asked in like 2 weeks ago in one of the videos in the comments, does fasting have an impact on my healthy lifespan?
Well, this is a nice question because, I started in the field of fasting 50 years ago by experiencing myself with an extraordinary experience. And then 40 years in my professional life, I am into clinical fasting, accompanying people fasting long-term, so meaning 5, 10, 15 days or more. We have, of course, a setting with multidisciplinary staff and medical accompaniment. Longevity in humans is a very big topic. It's not so easy to see if something is prolonging the life of humans who live 80 years. So, you need a research team that is able to have at least 3 generations of research. This is why we make the experiments on animal models. But we can just analyze the ways the people age, and seeing how fasting and a good lifestyle, a good nutrition, because this is very important. It's not only fasting and doing anything afterwards and before, but it's fasting included in a good lifestyle. This is improving the parameters that correlate with long life. First, it normalizes the weight, and it makes a metabolic reset. And we know that many of the accidents, the cardiovascular diseases, the acute cardiovascular diseases like a stroke or myocardial infarct, they shorten life, and you prevent them through regular fastings, intermittent fasting on a regular basis, and periodically a long-term fasting. This diminishes, resets the metabolism, decreases the blood pressure, all the lipids, the atherogenic situation. It is also preventing degenerative disease like diabetes type 2 and probably cancer, neurological diseases. So we can approach that way. We see that the fasting is also diminishing inflammation, and the mechanism through which probably life can be enhanced is that when you start fasting, even short-term, it is then a short-term phenomenon, but when you fast long-term, it's a long-term phenomenon. You activate the autophagy, and the autophagy is what is cleaning your cells. It's a sort of system where all the structures that are old and damaged are going to be eliminated, self-digested and recycled. And at the same time, you have regular apoptosis. This is the self or suicide of the old and damaged cells that just get rid of themselves so that the tissues can rejuvenate, like it's a word, so to get younger out of stem cells or new synthesis. And this phenomenon is extremely boosted by fasting, and by also a situation which is linked to fasting, which is called ketosis. So we know that also with fasting, short term, then it's a short moment, but if you fast long term, then it can be over days. You have an epigenetic phenomenon. It means you deactivate some signaling pathways of your genes. You activate some gene sequences and you deactivate other ones. And the genes sequences which are activated by proteins or by sugars, since you fast, meaning you are not absorbing food or very little food, these signaling pathways are just deactivated, and it is the aging pathways. You know, when you eat a lot of sugar, a lot of animal proteins or proteins in general, this is the Western diet. Then you boost your system, so you push the engine to the limits, and this engine is getting old quicker. The fasting is doing the contrary. It's slowing down all these processes, making a phase where the organism is put in a protected mode, the cells are in a protected mode, and clean themselves and regenerate themselves. And the more you do that, the more regularly you regenerate your system after having cleaned it thoroughly, the more you will be able to get old, but in good health. And this is, of course, the clue. Nobody wants to be 120 if you are 30 years in your bed and dement. So at the same time, the neurological research is trying to examine the effect on fasting on the aging processes of the brain. And it seems that some research at least looks for the use of fasting to prevent Alzheimer and to prevent dementia and the neurological diseases like Parkinson, which are making the old age very difficult. So not only you can hope to live longer, but also in better health, long in good health. And it's already proved by all animal models, from cell cultures with worms, flies, and mice. When you shorter their food, or you let them fast regularly, they live longer. So in animal models, it's already proved, and in humans, all the indices point in that direction. So I would, and in my case, I do it, and I would recommend anyone to include fasting periods in his or her life, maybe on a regular basis, intermittent fasting, and once or twice a year, longer periods of fasting, long-term fasting, under supervision of a multidisciplinary staff and medical doctors.
Maybe let's quickly talk about another human example, a very prominent and concrete one, at least to us, and most likely he didn't know about all these benefits back then. The founder of our clinics, Dr. Otto Buchinger, he started the entire fasting journey by his own sickness, and maybe you would like to talk a couple of sentences about this, like how he figured out about fasting and until what age he continued his fasting journey.
Otto Buchinger was a medical doctor in the Marine, 16 years long. Then he had a rheumatic fever. He couldn't move any joint anymore. Everything was inflamed in his body. It came after a bacterial infection, very classical before the time of antibiotics. And 19 days of fasting, water fasting, resolved the problem. He never had a relapse. He was completely healed, but he changed radically his lifestyle. At that time, he turned out to be a vegetarian. He had a very spiritual life anyway, and he was inspired to change totally the profession. So he opened a fasting clinic. And this started a program and a method that we still, in the 4th generation today in our clinics, we are improving always better and adding some research. Now we are basing this method, this long clinical knowledge, on scientific publications. And what he did was to fast at least 3 weeks every year, and then the 5 first days of the month he used to fast also. After some years, he added some vegetable broth and freshly pressed fruit or vegetable juices. So for 200, 250 calories, just a little help, but mainly is a fasting. And he lived until 92. He died even very peacefully. So not only he lived longer, but he came at the end of his life, and many people think because he had this experience of fasting on a regular basis where you just let it happen. You learn to stop wanting to control the process. The program of fasting is in your cells, and you just accept it. You stop eating, you make a program, a sort of rhythm. You have some things to do. You can read that in our manuals. But mainly and genuinely, you just let it happen. And he died the way he had learned to fast. So maybe on a more inspirational level, this exercise of regularly fasting is not only good to live long and to be more healthy, to fight against some diseases, and also sometimes just to reset your metabolism and your life, but also maybe once to learn to just leave that planet in peace.
Great, thank you very, very much once again, Françoise. That was very interesting, very much appreciated, and already looking forward to the next video.
Yes. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, Lisa, and thank you for listening.
Thank you too. Have a great evening. Bye-bye. Mm-hmm.